So today we're going to take a look at Deaf Noodles. If you don't know, he's recently been under some scrutiny over the past couple of weeks because he doesn't seem to be able to take criticism. His go-to excuse every time is that the Deaf Noodles guy is just a character. But the thing is, this makes it almost impossible to have a good faith debate or conversation with the guy, because his excuse every time for anything he does that gets called out will, retrospectively of course, be, "Hey, come on guys, it was just a joke, I was playing a character." I think the guy clearly has some good intentions for the most part, but he doesn't seem to understand that a lot of people just don't get the humour he's trying to portray, which a lot of the time results in his audience just feeling confused on his takes. Sometimes you think he's serious, has a shit take, or does something a little questionable, he gets called out for it, but then he uses the, "Hey guys, it was just a character, Deaf Noodles, not me." He said on his call with Augie he recently had that a lot of the time the punchline is actually meant to be that his takes are awful, yet he still tries to pride himself on being a journalist. So it's a bit confusing when he's reporting on stories to know whether what he's saying is a joke or one of the characters, Deaf Noodles, dumb takes. He's recently tried to, quote, front-load his tweets with the punchline, which I can respect and actually have noticed when following his Twitter account, despite actually being blocked. Hey, my guy, ever heard of using Twitter unsigned in? Anyway, I think he's caught in a bit of a dilemma because he wants to seemingly be respected as a journalist and a source of news and current trends, yet also wants to be a goofy character that people find funny, except at certain times where this just doesn't feel appropriate, such as on a story about SA or underage misconduct, and you're left feeling a bit weird that a jokey character has just taken the mick out of everything he's talking about, which is all, pretty serious. He's highlighted that he uses a serious warning in front of these types of stories, but it's still a little bit confusing whether this is part of the satirical, sarcastic Deaf Noodles character, since Dennis states himself, the guy who plays Deaf Noodles, a large portion of Deaf Noodles' humour is actually centred around sarcasm and hyperbole. The other thing that clearly needs to be called out was when, on his call with Augie, he says that Augie flirts with fascist ideas. He tweeted this out previously, and Augie pointed out that he's also implied that Augie was racist, and he didn't even apologise or was just pretty determined to avoid any sort of apology. And I'm not sure why he thinks he's above saying sorry or can't put his ego aside for just 1 second and actually admit, yeah, you know what, I was caught up in the moment and said some things I probably shouldn't have, and instead he just seems to say, yeah, it was a character, Deaf Noodles, yay! But he also took clips of Augie, Nick Diorio and Will Black's jokingly talking about creating fake Deaf Noodles account on Parler and tweeting random shit out. And Nick disavowed, yet Deaf Noodles posted a thread on his Twitter account, a clipped version of the original clip presenting Nick as actually wanting to take part and supporting the idea, when about 10 seconds later, Nick disavows absolutely everything and told his audience not to do anything. Yet Deaf Noodles was extremely disingenuous, and again is just another way for Dennis or Deaf Noodles or whoever the fuck to just, not admit fault when he's in the wrong. And he actually later apologises to Nick, posting a thread, only to unblock him, tag him quickly, then immediately block him again, meaning Nick couldn't see or reply to the thread. He also seems to block anyone who comments on any of Nick's tweets, with loads of people pointing out that they've never interacted with the account and have been blocked, including myself. Another thing Augie pointed out was his passive-aggressive post about that YouTuber Grady Hopper, who did a very small, fair video about some criticism of Deaf Noodles, and at the time it was only a 1k channel or maybe even under, and the title of the post was very, very what most of his audience would have inferred as passive-aggressive, which came across like he was mocking the YouTuber and trying to invalidate his points by suggesting that he had stupid takes. And Dennis said it was the character Def Noodles, once again, and it was Def's way of promoting the small YouTuber to his 40k followers on Twitter, shouting out a small guy, situation he would have loved to have been in himself when he was a small channel. Dennis then explained the guy gained subs from the whole thing and they'd talked it out in DMs later, and it was all good. But yet Dennis said earlier the whole point of the humour of the character of Def Noodles centres around sarcasm and hyperbole. So wouldn't that mean that his statements of big love to Grady Hopper actually be an exaggeration and show his upset and disdain for the video? Just saying. Most people can appreciate how the character is often sarcastic, but a lot of his viewers also thought this post was simply just calling the guy out and, a bit of a hate post on the guy. On the call with Augie, he later went on to point out that Augie often calls out his audience to dogpile on people, yet again, despite supposedly being a master of hyperbolic humour, doesn't seem to be able to actually pick up on the fact that Augie's tweets is just that, hyperbole. He also Augie doesn't actually avow dogpiling on smaller creators of Twitter users, but in this example was jokingly saying it's funny to see that happen, particularly on that day when someone had wrongly accused him of being a pedo, and many of Augie's supporters had called this guy out for doing so. It's also worth noting too that 99% of Augie's fans would have known his tweet was a joke and not avowing or encouraging mass attacking on anyone on his behalf. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that at least 50% of Def Noodles' followers have no idea when his tweets are serious or not, and this drastically compromises the integrity of this character he's trying to portray and his whole channel as a whole. Because people are just left feeling confused and uncertain of what they're watching sometimes. Dennis tried to explain that he wants to convey the news in a jokingly satirical character to make it more funny and interesting to the everyday viewer. But instead it just makes it a lot less digestible and doesn't quite communicate the point he's trying to relay across. I read something once that really fits here. It kind of outlined that communication is only as effective or meaningful as what the recipient takes away. So often it doesn't matter how or what words are being said to convey the meaning or the message. What actually matters is that the message that the person hears and takes away from the conversation. So despite Def Noodles saying he's trying to make the news more funny and digestible, he ends up actually doing the opposite, and people are just left feeling confused and unsure what the fuck they've read. I don't know, he just seems a decent guy, trying to stand out, but is doing so in a weird way that doesn't quite work, yet seems determined to continue doing what he's doing. Anyway, that's it for now, and if you could leave a comment, maybe on what I could improve on next time, or just like and subscribe if you enjoyed the content and want to see a bit more. It's my first video, I know it's a bit scuffed, but any and all support would be greatly appreciated. See you next time!